Hi, and welcome back. I'm super excited to collaborate on this project. This with me today is Karina Hines. She is founder and owner of Botanical Kitchen. And you guys know my views on food and how food is medicine. And so I'm super excited to collaborate with Karina on this project that we're going to be doing together. We're trying to educate everyone about how important food is. So thank you so much, Karina, for joining us, functional medicine chef. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Helms. It's great to be here, and I'm excited to connect with your community. I think we've talked about this before, but it's like you and I really have the same mission. We're on the same path together, and it's always great to speak with someone coming at it from your point of view. You're looking at it from the medical point of view, but you're also looking at it from the mental health point of view and that habit changing point of view, which is all part of the food is medicine piece.
Correct.
Okay?
I 100% agree.
Everything is connected. So this is going to be great. We've got a lot to talk about. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, well, I want you to kind of introduce yourself. I know a lot about you, but a couple questions. What got you into essentially functional medicine nutrition? And then why did you start Botanical Kitchen? Right. So let's talk about those things.
I'm Australian. Just for everybody, I'm Australian, Australian-born farmer's daughter. I'm now living in Maine, in the USA, and I've been in the States for over 10 years at this point, and I love it. I grew up on the farm. I grew up in that situation where everything we ate, we grew. So, farm to table before farm to table was cool.
Yeah.
We weren't wealthy. Everything came out of the garden. And I just sort of assumed from a food point of view, that's how the rest of the world ate. And it really wasn't until I was a teenager that I was like, oh, everybody doesn't have a garden and everybody doesn't harvest their own chickens and collect their own eggs and milk their own cow.
Yeah.
And so, as I moved away from home and as I got older, I had a lot of sort of some trauma situations that happened in my life. I lost my father at a young age, and I also went away to boarding school because we lived quite rural. So, there was a lot of changing in my life as a young girl and the transitioning period. And I think as I moved away from the home, the food in my life changed. And I noticed that my health also went downhill. And I think stress had a lot to do with it. And I got ear infections. And so I ended up getting a lot of antibiotics. And, that was in the late 70s, early 80s when, you went to your GP and you were given.
That's what you got. Yeah.
That's what you got. That's how it was done. And nobody knew what they know today. So fast forward a couple of years of that sort of happening. And then I ended up just being really sick, and I was probably 17 or 18 years old. And I had no energy. I would get tonsillitis all the time. And then I'd have to go to the point, and go and get an injection of penicillin to get myself better. And I remember just getting out of bed one morning and being like, this is not right. Something is
it's a vicious cycle. Right. Yeah. You just keep, exactly.
Right. And thankfully, something about Australia is we have a lot of naturopaths. There's a lot of natural medicine in Australia. And so, at the ripe old age of 18 years old, I was like, okay, this is not right. Whatever the doctor's doing, they're not helping. I feel better. I'm not in pain from my ear infections or from my tonsillitis, but I'm not getting any better. So I took myself off to see a naturopath, and it wasn't really until years later that I really realized that she kind of shuffled me in the door and sat me down. It's I couldn't probably really afford a naturopath at that point, but she really was just helped me understand, and she diagnosed me with chronic candida, actually.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And, so I'm 18 years old. I was living by myself at university, chronic candida. And I'm like, okay. And it's how do you change? And she was like, we have to change your diet. And I'm like, okay, well, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And I grew up being am I going to be a chef or am I going to go to university? So food has always been a huge part of my life. And I was like, okay, cooking, fine. Food, I can do that.
Yeah.
Correct. So, I educated myself, and then she put me through a regime of different gut healing protocols.
Correct.
Way back then that we had that, and lots of prebiotics and probiotics. And so, here I was at 18, I was going to the library, getting cookbook to look up vegetables that I was like, I don't even really know what this is, but like, okay. And, you know, I followed along as best I could. I took sugar completely out of my diet. I took wheat completely out of my diet, dairy. It's like, you know, it was a hardcore anti-inflammatory diet, plus, you know, a gut healing protocol, plus, you know, a yeast sort of killing protocol, which is the sugar. And my whole life transitioned in 9 months.
Yeah.
I went from being this girl that was sick all the time to this young, very young adult that was like robust and energy, and, you know, my mind, you know, sort of like came alive again. And I was sort of like, wow, like this is a really powerful, like just by changing my diet, I did that. And, you know, that was probably, it took me probably 18 months before I could go back to like transitioning back to what we would call a little bit more typical. Like it was a very, very, very strict diet for 12 months. Which, you know, I pulled off at 18, 19 years old. So I'm pretty,
which is that alone is amazing, because 18-year-olds typically don't follow a diet.
Right. But because it was so effective, you know, it's like you make a change, then you feel it, and then you make another change, and you make another change. And, you know, that's the beauty of food as medicine. That's the beauty of functional nutrition. It actually works, and it works fairly fast. So I had that journey, and I have literally been on the path ever since. I've been, you know, I've studied up to clinical level in herbalism, aromatherapy. I've done a lot of, you know, sort of gut-brain connection, food as medicine, cooking, like really like my whole career. I've been a private chef and a chef for 20 years. I worked in the private sector, mostly helping families and helping people transition and change their diet. I lived in Europe for 10 years. I worked as a chef on sailing yachts, actually. And so, you know, I really learned as a young chef what a Mediterranean diet actually is, because I actually lived in the Mediterranean and cooked diet. And you know, it was there's an interesting connection between like growing up as a child and having the farm to table style food, and then going and working as a young chef in the Mediterranean. The food doesn't come from the supermarkets. You go to the market every day, and the farmers come in from wherever they are. And it doesn't matter if you're in France or if you're in a tiny little island in Greece or Turkey, like it's like the food comes from, you know, a lot of the local farmers, and everything is like very seasonal. And so as a young chef, it's like that's how you eat. And so I would go to the market, buy all the fruits and vegetables and the, you know, the fresh fish, and then, you know, go back to work and cook it for my clients. And that was really my whole career. And that was very in line with what I learned from functional nutrition approach. And then, you know, just what I learned as like a healthy diet, healthy lifestyle.
Okay, so let's, I'm going to stop you right there and kind of interject, because I want everybody to know what chronic candidal is. And then I will let you continue we'll jump forward to what made you start botanical gardens. So chronic candida, it's a overgrowth of yeast, essentially. Now it can be called, there's different names for it, but essentially what was happening is when people take antibiotics, which the way you were given in your GP back in Australia is very much the way we still practice here in the United States. Somebody comes in not feeling well, we typically go for antibiotics. I'm still working the acute care. People come in requesting antibiotics, and I'm trying to educate them. Chronic antibiotic use for all these different ailments leads to bacterial overgrowth and yeast overgrowth, because what happens is antibiotics decrease, believe it or not, your good bacteria in your gut. And when that happens, you have yeast. And all other thing, why you were saying sugar, you gave up sugar and it started making you feel better. Bacteria and yeast love sugar. So the more sugar that you put in your body, the more you have these not so good bacteria and these more bad yeast to kind of eat it up, because you're feeding that to them. And so I just wanted to kind of interject, and that then turns into all your symptoms: chronic fatigue, bloating. It can't, mental health is all, you know, out of whack, weight gain, inflammation in the body. You just don't feel good. And so I wanted to kind of interject and kind of, from a medical standpoint, what was happening to you and why, when you changed your diet, stuff start turning around, because your good bacteria came back in, you repaired the lining of your stomach, you gave up the sugar that was feeding the bad yeast and the bad bacteria. And so that's why where food is medicine really comes into play. And so I just wanted to throw that in there. So I'm glad that happened to you early. But for a lot of patients and people now, they're just realizing this in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they've been living feeling awful for 20, 30 years and just accepting that this is the way they were supposed to feel. And this is absolutely not the way they were supposed to feel. People just got used to it, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so fast forward for you, you have created Botanical Kitchen. So is your experience in all these different traveling, is that what prompted you to start this?
Yes. I mean, a huge part of it is when I came to America, there was two pieces. It's like Botanical Kitchen has always been living in me because, you know, as Karina Hines, I've learned all these things. I know all these things. The best way to share them is to share the knowledge that I have. It's like, well, how am I going to do that? What's that going to look like? But then when I arrived in America, I was like, I immediately went looking for the farmers market. Like, you know, where's the farmers market? And everyone was like, what do you mean, where's the farmers market? I'm like, where do you buy your fruits and vegetables? In the supermarket? I'm like, oh no, that's not that's not where we do it where I'm from. And then, you know, I was lucky. I landed in Boston, and, you know, the Boston area is full of beautiful farms.
Yes.
You know, so I started, you know, getting involved in that. And then you know, I ran a private chef business in Boston, and I was helping people change their diet, you know, and helping their families. Like, you know, mac and cheese isn't a food group, and, you know, how do we change that? And I was helping families with children with different levels of autism, because autism is really affecting, you know, your flavors, and textures is always an issue. So, you know, with all of my training and all my years of cooking experience, you know, I was helping a lot of people, and especially families with young children with like some like food and health challenges. And my go-to was like, we need to get food from the farmers market. And then, you know, as I, you know, build a community there, you know, it would come CSA season, it would become farmers market season, and people would start calling me and be like, you know, I've got these white things. They kind of look like a radish, but like, I'm not really sure like what it is. And I'm like, oh, it's a, you know, it's a huckleberry turnip. But you know, I've got this whole thing of bok choy. That's all I got. Like, what am I going to do with it? And so like, I really noticed that there was this gap in the system in, you know, the food world. As a chef, I was going in and getting food and taking it back into the community and where I was working. And then in the working world, it was like, you know, I was often part of like a medical team, where it's like, you know, someone, you know, I would speak to the nutritionist, or I would speak to the dietitian, or my clients' friends would be like, you know, XYZ's going on. You know, my husband's got kidney disease. He's got this, you know, fairly strict diet. We don't really know what to do, because people are telling us these are the ingredients that we can't eat, but no one's telling us like no one's giving us recipes. No one's really telling us like, you know, well, what can we eat, and how do we make that make sense? Because it's complicated, right?
Yeah. And
I was like, so I just noticed this gap in the, you know, the education in the food system. Like, no one knows how to cook. That how-to skill of not knowing how to cook local seasonal food and things that are not typical. I grew up in a family with great cooks, but like not everybody did.
Yeah, correct.
So, and I had that skill. And so I was like, okay, well, what am I going to, like, how do I share that skill? And then, you know, looking at the gap between, which, you know, as a practitioner, you are saying to your clients, you know, this is a great way to improve your health, is to change your diet. But like, how do you do that? And that's not your job. Your job is like, so we need a whole team of people to do that. So Botanical Kitchen was sort of born out of that gap we have in the healthcare system. So it's like, I can help fill that gap. And you're saying to your patients, this is, you know, what you need to do. And I'm like, this is how to do it. This is what breakfast, lunch, and dinner looks like on an anti-inflammatory diet. You know, this is what a gut healing protocol looks like. But also, you know, I feel like there's a lot of loud voices in the world about like what we should eat, and it gets really complicated. It can get a little silly. It can get a little expensive.
Exactly.
And it gets really complicated. And that's not my experience with eating healthy and healthy food. And so I want to also give this voice in this space that I really feel it's like, you don't have to be wealthy to eat healthy. You know, you can get like basic ingredients, basic fruits and vegetables and grains, whole foods, And if you take the time to cook, you can really like use food as medicine and really improve your health. So that's sort of my drive. That's what gets me out of bed every day and gets me in Botanical Kitchen.
Yeah, no, I love the idea. I love the idea that you are essentially filling in the gap of the how-to. So let me give a scenario on my end. So I see patients with all kind of chronic medical conditions, diabetes, obesity, hypertension, who now have kidney disease because either their diabetes or their hypertension, you know, all these things. And as a United States MD trained, Western medicine trained doctor, what we typically do is say, okay, you need to, if you have diabetes, you need to go on a low carb diet. And, or if you have hypertension, you need to go on a low sodium diet. And then we hand them all these things of what to get rid of. And then usually that's the extent of what we do. And then I have even noticed in my own patients that they're out to kind of figure out, okay, if I can't eat these foods, so then what can I eat, you know, or low carb diet, like what does that look like? And I notice even patients with obesity, when you talk, diet is almost like a bad word here. You know what I'm saying? Because it's been used the wrong way. First of all, it should be a lifestyle diet, like something that you're always on, and eating healthy. Even in my household, they're like healthy, automatically think green. Like, and that's how the United States, that's how we see things. Like healthy is either complex, it's either expensive, or it's too complicated, it's not doable. And so, you know, I do a lot of brain work and neural pathways. And when somebody says eat healthy, when they go to a physician and we're like, in order to help your medical conditions, you need to eat better, eat healthier. And there in the patient's head, all these like bells and whistles goes off. Like, I can't afford it. I don't know how to, they don't know how to do it. They don't even know where to start to do it. And the only information that we provide as a medical doctor is a list of what not to eat. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this course with you, because as you said in the beginning, we're very much in line. I really appreciated that you had the how-to mentality, meaning I need to bridge the gap, because if I'm going to admit, I have started and have subscribed as a member to Botanical Kitchen.
Yay. Thank you.
And I'm always talking about curiosity and being creative and, you know, just staying in effort. And I have eaten and tried things that I have never tried before because I didn't even either know it existed or I didn't know how to do it, right? Like in the United States, we're so used to processed food that's kind of ingrained in us, in our DNA right now, you know, and to be able to have to switch that mentality to know you can have other foods that's better for you. And now my whole family, you know what I'm saying, is eating these, and they don't even know they're eating healthy. I don't even mention healthy anymore with my kids. I'm just like, here's your dinner. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And they have all kind of like fiber and all these things that before I wasn't necessarily cooking correctly. So I really appreciate you filling the gap. And I really appreciate this whole, like the how to, and that's kind of what I want to get into it a little bit more. So for example, when patients come and they have these chronic conditions and they are stated, okay, you have to give up all of these things. So how are you able to kind of give them the how to, so to speak?
There's a lot of different ways, but like I can answer it. You know, all of my recipes, at the bottom of each recipe, it's like there's a recipe for the ingredients, but then at the bottom of each recipe, it's like swap this for this, swap that for that. If you don't have oats, or you don't like beans, or you don't have lentils, or you don't have squash, you know, these are the other vegetables you can substitute it. So, you know, you look at one recipe, and actually from that one recipe, you can probably devise 8 or 10 different versions of that recipe to suit what makes sense to you, to what makes sense to your lifestyle. So that's definitely like a straight up quick answer to that. I believe.
Well, how did you come up with some of the recipes?
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was saying, how did you even come up with some of your recipes, and kind of, is it just things that you like? Is it like when you see a patient or even the autism or whoever how do you take them from where they are to healthier eating habits?
Great question. If I'm working with somebody one-on-one, it's like I find out where they're at. I meet them where they're at and find out what we can introduce and swap in substitute out to make those changes. So for example, with like one of your patients with type 2 diabetes, it's like, okay, you know, sugar is probably the thing that you're wanting to remove from their diet straight up. So a classic example of that. And I mean, I can do a show and tell. Do you want me to do a show and tell?
Sure, please.
So a classic example, like someone might be like, oh, you know, I love, you know, a soda. That's my thing. And I think I'm listening to one of your podcasts, Dr. Hamilton, you were talking about the neuro pathways and you used to drink soda.
Yeah, exactly.
And how incredibly hard that change is. And change is hard. And like, so that's the other piece that I take to my heart. And it's like, I know changing your diet is hard. Change is hard, but it's like, how do you do it to make it make sense? So it's like, you know, I'm a big fan of frozen fruits and vegetables. Frozen fruits and vegetables are absolutely fine. If they're processed and turned into something else, like maybe not, because we don't know what the ingredients are.
Correct.
But, you know, frozen berries, frozen butternut squash, frozen peas. Who doesn't have frozen peas in their freezer, right?
Correct.
These are all like good foods. And it's like, not everybody has access to farm fresh, beautiful, local ingredients. And if they do, they can't afford it. That's okay.
Correct.
That's the piece of like, you know, you don't have to be wealthy to eat healthy. So it's like, instead of the soda, you know, this is some frozen berries, mixed bag of berries. I've taken them out of the freezer. I poured them into a mason jar. Very high tech. Very high tech here at Botanical Kitchen. We get our sparkling water that, you know, we have the soda stream, you know, the soda stream that you can just like bubble your own water, because that's a sustainable approach. And then we pour our sparkling water into our berries. And we've got our own berry soda.
Oh, that looks good. And I'm assuming it tastes really good too.
It tastes incredible because it's like, it's the juice of, and what's lovely about frozen berries is when they defrost, they let all the juice go. So you're not going to get the same, you're not going to get the same effect with a fresh berry. Okay.
That's good to know.
So see that how that beautiful color is.
Yes, exactly.
From as the berries defrost, they release the juice. So you've still got all the fiber, you've still got all the vitamin content, because we haven't changed anything, right?
Correct.
All we did is took it from frozen to room temperature. But then, you know, now we've got all those berry flavors. Yeah. And so there's a natural sweetness. Correct. As well. And the bubbles, and you can probably talk about
yes,
I am a bit more about bubbles with our, like, you know, neuro pathways. Correct. The idea of bubbles is it makes us think something different.
Soda. Right? Okay, so I'm gonna jump in. Let me jump in because I'm super excited to talk about what you just did. So one, I didn't know it. So I used to infuse water. When I tried to switch to be healthier, I infused water, and it didn't look as dark as that. So that frozen vegetable trick is very helpful, which is cheaper than fresh, and it lasts longer.
And look, see the juice in there?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it.
You know, how much does a can of this cost? It costs more than the berries in here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then I really like that because when we infuse water, because I used to say fruit infusion, it doesn't come out that dark. That actually looks like, you know what I'm saying, almost like a soda. And so I want to do the neural pathway part. So I always talk about healthy swaps, which you just mentioned too. And because if you give up something cold turkey or do something cold turkey, it's not going to work. So the fruit infusion didn't work as well for me when I was trying to give up soda, because it wasn't like a 1-to-1 in the brain, right? So the fact that you did carbonated water still gives us that carbonation from soda in the brain. The brain looks at it as the same. The color looks at it as a Coke or Pepsi because it's the dark color. Believe it or not, these are pathways that we felt in the brain. And then you still have the sweetness. So in the brain, when you give up soda because you're diabetic, or just because soda is horrible for you, whether you're diabetic or not, and then you substitute it for carbonated frozen fruit infused water, in the brain, it's an even exchange. So that's actually an easy pathway for you to kind of move over to versus going from soda to water. That's not an easier pathway. No, and so I love that idea. I didn't even know that. I learned something new. I'm going to try that.
And would you not say that, like, if we're drinking this instead of drinking soda, you know, we're not going to have that crash afterwards.
Yeah,
so actually,
correct.
Will those neuro pathways not like form quicker?
Yes, yes. So the neuropath, yes, whenever something is rewarding, that's why you have to do a swap, a healthy swap. It's quicker. It forms quicker. It's sustainable, which is, you know, what we want. But in my course, in your course, sustainable, healthy lifestyle, and you don't get the crash. You don't get any of the downside of kind of cutting things out cold turkey. I don't like restrictive diets, and I don't think you probably take your clients from, okay, I've been eating mac and cheese and soda all of my life to now I'm eating celery and water. Like that switch can't go. It's not going to work. Exactly. Yeah.
And
that's perfect.
You know, there's also this other piece in the diet world, and you know, another reason, you know, why I started Botanical Kitchen, and I know another reason why you do what you do as well. It's like, you know, there's this horrible sort of conversation out there about, you know, the dieting and, you know, and some like crazy different ideas. And you know, I'm about nourish, not punish. Like, you know,
yeah, so correct. I like that.
It doesn't work. It's like, we need to nourish our bodies. And if we feel nourished, we move forward in a positive way. I just honestly believe that. So, you know, with the recipes that I do, with the sort of anti-inflammatory diet. So everything I do on Botanical Kitchen follows an anti-inflammatory diet. So an anti-inflammatory diet means it's gluten-free, dairy-free, refined sugar-free. And if you wanted to add those things in, of course you could, but like that's the foundation where you start with. So, you know, the idea of your patient with type 2 diabetes, or someone with obesity, or someone, you know, just who doesn't feel great, that's exactly inflammation. It's like, you know, we first, in functional nutrition and functional medicine, we first begin with like, let's take out all the things that might be causing an effect.
Correct, because that's the precursor to chronic diseases.
So we start on the anti-inflammatory diet, and then, you know, we make those changes. But like how I like to put it forward with Botanical Kitchen is like, this is going to be delicious. This is going to be fun. And like you said, like you're having an adventure trying things that you're like, oh, I never tried that. But I'm also, you can eat cake. I love chocolate. I eat cacao every day. I have my very bubbly water situation happening here. And it's like, and I feel good about it. And I still eat granola. I make a granola, but instead of, you know, we know that granola's usually got a lot of oil in it. We know granola's got a lot of sugar in it. And it's like, sugar is sugar is sugar. Yeah. It could be maple syrup. It could be white sugar. It's like, yes, maple syrup is better for you because it has some fiber and minerals in there, which are going to not spike your blood sugar as much. Correct. But it's still sugar and it's still inflammatory. So it's like, if we're in a chronic state, and like in my chronic state with Candida, that took 12 months of no sugar to kill that bacteria and yeast in my body and my body to be able to heal. So that's a long time. So, you know, when you're talking about this as a lifestyle, not like a crash 21-day diet and I'm going to be better. It's like, you know, this is really, you know, we're talking about creating some sustainable changes that we can continue using. So it's like, I make my granola with applesauce. Yeah. So applesauce is a good switch. I bake it with applesauce. So, you know, it's beautiful. It's crunchy. And, you know, I went into the supermarket the other day and I swear there was a bag that had about like this much granola in it. And it was like $9. Yeah. And I'm like, there's not even $2 worth of ingredients in that. But I know that's my job. Like, correct. So I'm like, you know, bang for your bite and buck. Yeah, exactly. You know, you're also going to be doing yourself any favors, making it for yourself. So it's like, that's the anti-inflammatory sort of lifestyle I promote. And you might be like, you know what? I actually need a little bit of sweetness. It's like, okay, so let's add some sweetness, but we're adding it. We're in control of making those changes. And it's like, we can do it with dried fruit, because like dried fruit would be better for us than sugar. We can, exactly. There's other ways we can add it. And then if at the end of the day, we need sugar, well, we're breaking ourselves out of the habit, because, you know, we are hardwired to want sugar, and we all exactly. Sugar, so it takes time to break it down. Then we add it, but we add it ourselves instead of letting a company add it for us. Correct. And, you know, that's the getting back into the kitchen, anti-inflammatory sort of cooking for yourself approach that I do with Botanical Kitchen. And to make it make sense, to sort of make it available for everybody, so it's like a flexible and affordable approach, I have 2 memberships. One is the Chef's Table, and so that is an omnivore diet, so pescatarian, carnivore.
Yeah, correct.
All of those things. And then that follows, and then I have one that's also called Whole Plant Life, which is whole food plant-based. So there's 2 different menus, and each come out each week, and each follow the seasons. So if you are going to the farmer's market, or you're trying to eat seasonally, because if we're eating what's in season, we're eating what's going to be the most flavorful, what's going to be the most abundant, and what's going to be the best priced. So buying strawberries in January and February, which is like right now, it's like they're not going to taste very good. They're going to be flown from goodness knows where.
Yeah, correct.
And they're going to be really expensive.
Yeah.
But if we're using our frozen blueberries that we, picked in frozen in summer, that, are the sustained for us, like that's a more sustainable approach to eating healthy. And this time of the year, if we look at it from like the lens of like Ayurveda, or we look at it through, Western herbalism, Eastern herbalism, this time of the year, it's cold. So we want, warming, nourishing, grounding foods. So, our squashes, our sweet potatoes, our soups, our, heavier vegetables. It's like, that's kind of like what we're wanting right now, because like, it's cold, and that's building and strengthening, but not building and strengthening as in like it's putting weight on you. It's not that kind of building and strengthening. Building and strengthening, it's enforcing your immune system, right? Because it's like you're eating all those antioxidants, and like you're taking in all of that nourishment. And so, you're just feeling more fortified against what's happening in the environment around you. And that's really what is great about following seasonal eating, because it's like we're eating the vegetables that go with the season. We're following what Mother Nature is literally subscribing to us. To me, it's interesting. It's like, if you look at citrus season, you're in Texas, so it's like, you've got citrus season down there in summer. I mean, in winter, sorry. So, citrus is Mother Nature's shot of vitamin C. And when do we need vitamin C the most?
Yeah, exactly.
Winter. And when is citrus season? Winter. It's like,
so what do people do if they don't have farmers market? Because even here in Texas, we have some, but not a lot. So the bulk of people will probably be doing supermarket stuff. And so what do you recommend for those people? Just kind of some of what you were saying, the frozen vegetables and the frozen fruit.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're going into the supermarkets are actually following the season as well. Yeah. If you go in there, because you're going into the supermarket right now, whether you're here in Maine or whether in Texas, there's squash in the supermarket, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because that's what's coming from the farms on a whole, on a larger scale as opposed to a smaller scale. So it's like, we're still eating what is in the supermarket. We're still like following the seasons. And then, we're also can be looking in our frozen fruits and vegetables section.
Yeah, correct.
I would always just say, read the label, because you never know what companies are going to put in things. It's like peanut butter really should be peanuts, maybe peanuts and salt. But if you read the list on like some of the things with peanut butter,
it has like 10 things,
like 10 different things, sugar, canola oil, like things I can't even pronounce. And it's like, if I can't pronounce it and I don't know what it is, I am not going to eat it. And I think that's a great rule to follow.
I was just about to reiterate that. So as we kind of wrap things up, if there's too many things on the label, because people are always like, how do I know? If there's too many things on the label, if you don't understand what they are, like, I would just stay away from it. And we were doing that for almond milk. I was looking for almond milk. The almond milk that I used to buy literally said almonds and water or something. You know what I mean? That's the one where it had like 2 or 3 ingredients that I recognized. The ones that's gone out of season. So I've had to go look for other types of almond milk, and there's like 8 things on the label, and I'm like, this is not good. I mean, would you say that's pretty much like correct? Like the least amount of things on the label, all things that you can identify. So if you don't know where to start there.
Like literally, like if you don't know what it is and you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. Like, and I think like that's a really great rule of thumb for like everyone. And if you're a chemist and you know what it is and you know how to pronounce it, you probably pretty sure you're not going to eat it because you actually know what it is. And, if we're talking about inflammation in our body and we're talking about, the healing through food as medicine, it's like, goodness knows what these chemicals really are doing, they're not doing us any favors.
Correct. All of those things that you don't recognize is what's causing the inflammation in your body, a lot of which is carcinogens, which we'll probably talk about more in the course. And so you just need to avoid them. Like all the junk that you see in these labels is what's causing the inflammation in your body. Yeah.
And something else that we're going to do in the course, which is cool, which I'm looking forward to, is I'm going to teach you how to make almond milk at home, and I'm going to teach you how to make other things more sustainable than almond milk at home. So you don't even have to worry about buying.
And then it'll probably be cheap, and it's probably cheaper, almost like that granola mix. So I saw a granola mix that I bought from Whole Foods. You're right. It was like $9. And I can tell you it's probably 1/3 the size of that mason jar over there.
There's a lot of food in there.
It is.
And I mean, for me, the cost out, I mean, I'm pretty savvy at costing things. It's like, there's definitely probably maybe $6 worth of ingredients, maybe $7. I mean, you're buying it in bulk and you're measuring it down, but it's like, if we're talking about, I think last week on my menus last week, I think I put like a seed milk. So it was sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds and flax seeds. So it's like, if we're looking at those seeds, we're looking at bringing in the polyphenols, we're looking at bringing in the omega-3s, we're looking at bringing in the fiber and some of the other amino acids and antioxidants that are really helpful for nourishing our endocrine system and our hormones. And, you take the seeds, you soak them, you strain them, you blend them, voila, you have milk. And it's like, if you went to buy that, you're buying, maybe if you bought it and it was like this much and it was like, what, $4, you're buying plastic packaging. So it's been sitting in the plastic packaging. So Lord knows what's in that.
Yeah, correct.
And when something sits in something, it's going to infuse in something.
Correct.
That's just the law of nature, right? That's the law of physics, I should say. And then, it's got the seeds, it's got water. So you're paying for water.
Yeah.
And then it's got these other interesting gums and and different things, which make it, when you pour it into the glass, look like milk. Yeah, they're called stabilizers and emulsifiers.
Correct, that's true.
Those stabilizers and emulsifiers are really not great for our gut.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So, and from a price point of view, I think I worked it out, and it cost me, I think it was like maybe $1. It was either 98 cents or $1.10. I can't remember for
the milk that you made.
For the milk that I
made. Yeah. No, I think it's going to be great. And so the other thing that we're going to talk about more in the course is taste. I can tell you, having done some of the things, eating healthy actually tastes good. It doesn't have to taste bad. It tastes great. You feel great. You're going to be helping and showing us how to make more healthy stuff that we can make at home that's affordable. So I'm super excited for that introduction today, and then what we're going to do together in collaboration to get everybody to eat healthier. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much, Karina, for being on this show. We will see you more in the course. I'm super excited to learn more from you myself, and then to help change the world so everybody can eat healthier and just get rid of the stigmatism of healthy eating is either gross or expensive or complex. The goal of this course is to completely get rid of that stigmatism.
And we will. And, and it's like, eat to thrive is my motto at Botanical Kitchen. And I think that's it. It's like, we're nourishing, not punishing. We're making it affordable. We're making it sensible. We're making it like, this is how to do it. Like, so you're telling us why, I'm going to be like, okay, cool. This is how we're going to do that. And all of a sudden it's like, you have the tools. It's like, oh yeah. And when you feel better, you are more inclined to help yourself. And it's like the more we look after ourselves and the more we cook for ourselves, like the better we're going to feel and the better we're going to be able to show up as humans in this world.
I agree. And just to end, I will say, I truly feel as a medical doctor, Western trained, that 70% of our chronic medical conditions, lifestyle is food. I personally believe that, like, hands down. Of course, we need to exercise and some of these other things, but I think 70% of our chronic conditions, to include asthma, bronchitis, chronic infections, diabetes, hypertension, kidney disease, cancers, I can go on and on, is from our food. And this is why it was so important for me to collaborate with Karina to do this course, because I'm in the business of resolving medical conditions. And I think the only way to be able to do that is we have to get everyone on a better, healthier eating regimen and let them know that it is possible. So I'm super excited. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Talk soon.